Hi, this is Kevin at the Virtual Planetarium at Raritan Valley Community College. Welcome to our weekly Star Talk. Today we're going to be talking about daylight savings time. But before we do that, let's talk about our upcoming moon phases. We have a first quarter moon on March 10th, we have a full moon on March 18th, and then we have a last quarter moon on March 25th. Alright, like I said, today we're going to be talking about daylight savings time. In case you're not aware, daylight savings is going to start again on March 13th, which is next week, so we wanted to give you a little more of a heads up. And in the spring, we are going to be jumping ahead or spring ahead 1 hour, or so to say, we lose 1 hour of sleep. Daylight savings runs from March 13th and it ends on November 6th. And the whole idea of daylight savings is to maximize the use of daylight hours, but really we're just shifting time. So instead of the sun rising at say 6:30 now in March and setting at 6:30 at night, it'll rise at 7:30 in the morning and then set at around 7:30 at night. It doesn't really seem like such a big deal now near the equinox. Why are we shifting sunrise from 6:30 to 7:30? It seems more normal at 6:30. But that's just during the equinox now. During the summer, when the days are longer, the sun is rising at 5:30 in the morning standard time. So when we shift it with daylight savings, it'll rise at 6:30 in the morning, since most people are still sleeping at 5:30 in the morning. And that way that morning sunlight isn't wasted. Of course, there's a lot of people whose days start at 5:30 in the morning and they need the sunlight, so they obviously are not happy about daylight savings times. There's been a lot of different reasons for and against daylight savings times through history. But, well, for now, they have to work in the dark, I guess, because you can't really make everybody happy, and the people in charge decided to do daylight savings, so just how it works. A really neat way to visualize this shift is to use this website called timeanddate.com. We have it set up for our location here in New Jersey, and we have a sun graph right here. We see the lighter blue is actually the daytime hours, and then the darker blue is the nighttime hours, and it has it for the whole year. So if you actually scroll over, we can see how that bottom bar right there changes as the days get longer when we get to the summer, and then the days start getting shorter again until we get to the winter solstice. Well, we can see the daylight savings shift right here, and we can tell that we're not actually changing the length of the days, we're just shifting it upwards a little bit. That way we have these morning hours a little bit darker, and then we have, towards the middle of summer, we're not wasting those morning hours, or so to say. But instead of having them in the morning, we move them towards the evening, and so the days aren't longer. Well, they're getting longer, but that's a whole other reason. But instead, they're just shifted upwards a little bit. So the important thing is, don't forget to shift your clocks on Sunday morning on March 13th. Most of them do it automatically, but if you have an old clock like I do, you're going to have to shift it by hand, so don't forget to do that. Now, what does this mean for astronomy? Well, not great things, actually. It means the sky is going to get darker later, so you'll have to stay up a little bit later to see the stars, if you like to see the stars at night after it gets dark. But conversely, if you were up just around sunrise at 6:30 in the morning, the sun was already up, or the sky was too bright and you couldn't see anything. But after daylight savings, if you're up at around 6:30 in the morning, it's still going to be dark, so that means you're going to be able to see a few planets and cool things in the sky. So right now I'm going to show you guys a few planets that you can see if you happen to be up after the daylight savings shift at around 6:30 in the morning. So here we have our planetarium sky. We are looking towards the east as we see the glow of the sun coming here, so it's not completely dark anymore, but it's still before sunrise, so we can see a few things in the sky fairly easily. If we zoom in towards the southeast, this is where all the cool stuff is. And if you are, again, up at around 6:30 in the morning and you look towards the southeast, you're going to see a very, very bright dot. And this is the planet Venus. If you've been seeing our videos for a while, you've probably heard of us talk about Venus, how it was up in the evening sky for quite a bit, like in the last semester, or a few months ago. Well, it eventually got close enough to the sun and then crossed to the other side of the sun, so now instead of being up in the evening sky, it is up in the morning sky. We don't really talk about it that much because not a lot of people are up at this time in the morning, but now with the daylight savings shift, most of you will probably be able to see Venus up in the sky. Venus is very easy to spot. It is the brightest thing in the sky that's not the sun or the moon. So if you see a very bright spot very close to the horizon, make sure it's not blinking or moving. Odds are that that is the planet Venus. If we zoom into Venus, we can see that it's actually not a full circle. It actually has a phase like our moon. And right now it's almost at a quarter phase, so that's pretty neat. But Venus isn't the only planet up in the sky. Actually, right below Venus, we have another planet. This one is the red planet, and that is the planet Mars. Now, Mars isn't nearly as bright as Venus, and it might be a little hard to see because it's not really that close to the Earth right now. But you might see a faint dot below Venus that has a very distinct reddish hue. So if you find Venus fairly easily, if you go down to like 5 o'clock a little bit, you'll be able to see a red dot, and that is Mars. So those are probably the two easiest planets to find in the morning sky, but we have a third one that is definitely a challenge because of how close to the horizon it still is. And that is this one right here, Saturn. As the days go on, as the weeks and months go on, it's going to be moving further and further away from the sun, so it'll be easier to see. But at the same time, the sun's going to be rising earlier and earlier, so if you're just up at around 6:30 in the morning, you might not be able to catch it. You might need to get up a little earlier to be able to see it. And then, of course, Saturn is famous because of its beautiful, beautiful rings. Sadly, you won't be able to see these rings in just the sky with just your eyes. But if you have a pair of binoculars or a small telescope, you might be able to catch a glimpse of these beautiful, beautiful rings. So these are 3 planets that we'll be able to see at a more reasonable hour in the morning. Again, after the daylight saving shift, this is about 6:30 in the morning. So if you're up at that time, definitely take a look towards the southeast. And again, don't forget to change your clocks. It's going to happen March 13th. Your phone will probably do it automatically, but your car might not, and clocks on the wall might not as well. So just remember that. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you learned something new. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. We'll be putting out a new video every week. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like. Thanks again for joining us, and I hope you have a great week.